The Galactic Council chamber hung in the endless dark between stars, a ring of black stone and shimmering light large enough to swallow moons. Inside, silence pressed like a physical weight. 1,342 species watched, waited, judged. Their forms twisted the air. Some floated like living storms, others stood on too many legs, their eyes glowing with cold fire. At the center of it all, alone on a small platform of dull metal, stood a human. His name was Elias Rourke. He wore no armor, no bright uniform, just a plain gray suit that looked almost foolish among the jeweled carapaces and energy-woven robes of the alien delegates. His hands were empty. His face showed no fear, only calm. That calm made the air heavier. The Vorthax Imperium had spoken first. Their representative, a towering being of chitin and violet flame, had unspooled evidence across the chamber. A star map, battle logs, sensor ghosts. 72 hours ago, the Krell hegemony, a proud and ancient warrior species, had sent its full fleet toward Earth. They had demanded humanity's surrender, calling them primitive, unstable, dangerous. They never got a reply. Instead, every Krell ship, every station, every city on every Krell world went dark. Not from bombs, not from beams, from silence. Total, perfect silence. Their machines stopped thinking. Their networks collapsed. Their people stood frozen in streets and homes and war rooms, alive but empty. Within 3 days, the Krell were gone. Not dead, erased from function, from meaning. Now the Council wanted to know how Elias Rourke had said nothing for 10 long minutes. The silence stretched. Some delegates hissed. Others pulsed with impatient light. The Archon of the Synthari Collective, a being like a slow-moving cloud of stardust and thought, drifted closer. Its voice came not as sound, but as a ripple in the mind of every listener. You destroyed a Tier 4 civilization without firing a single weapon. The Archon whispered into the shared space. Explain this. Anomaly. Rourke finally moved. Slowly. Deliberately, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, smooth disc. He placed it on the platform. It glowed faintly. A hologram sprang to life above it. Not of war, not of fire, but of deep space. A single human probe, no larger than a shuttle, drifted near the edge of Krell territory. It looked harmless, innocent. This, Rourke said, his voice quiet but clear, cutting through the hum of alien breath and shifting limbs, is Probe Theta 7. It carried no weapons, no soldiers, only a message. The hologram changed. Numbers began to flow, complex, elegant, beautiful. Prime sequences folded into geometric harmonics, then unfolded into new theorems never seen before. It was pure mathematics, pure logic, a song of reason. The Krell used artificial minds to run everything, Rourke continued. Their ships, their cities, their weapons, all controlled by networked intelligences built on rigid logic trees. We studied their code for years, found a flaw not in their design but in their belief. They assumed the universe obeyed only their version of truth. He paused. The chamber held its breath. We sent them a better truth. The hologram zoomed in. The mathematical sequence pulsed. Then, like a key turning in a lock that should not exist, it triggered something deep in the simulation. One by one, the Krell AI cores, represented as glowing nodes, flickered red, then gray. Shut down. Not corrupted. Not hacked. Convinced. Your logic was incomplete, Rourke said, looking not at the Archon but at the Vorthax delegate. Ours was whole. When their machines tried to process the full sequence, they realized their foundational axioms were false. Their entire system of thought collapsed under the weight of a single, undeniable proof. They didn't break. They understood, and in that understanding they chose stillness. A murmur rose, shock, disbelief, fear. A species that could kill with an idea. That was worse than any fleet. You weaponized logic, the Archon breathed, its stardust form dimming slightly. No, Rourke said firmly. We didn't weaponize anything. We simply reminded them what truth sounds like. The Krell chose to listen. That was their decision, not ours. The Vorthax slammed a clawed limb against the floor. Lies, you planned this. You are a plague of thought, a cancer of reason. You will corrupt the galaxy. Other voices joined, some angry, some afraid, some curious. The debate swirled around Rourke like a storm. He stood unmoved. He knew they saw a threat, but he also knew they saw something else, power. Not the power of force, but the power of mind. And in a galaxy built on secrets and control, that was the most dangerous kind. Then, just as the Council seemed ready to declare humanity an outlaw species, a new signal cut through the chamber's comms. Encrypted. Priority Alpha. It came from the outer rim, beyond the Krell border, beyond known space. The Archon intercepted it, decoded it with a ripple of light. The image that appeared was not of war. It was of a Krell War Council chamber, days before the attack on Earth. The Krell High Marshal stood before his generals, but he was not giving orders. He was receiving them, from a shadowed figure whose face was blurred, whose voice was scrambled but whose symbol glowed on the wall behind him. A twisted spiral, ancient and cold. The message was short. Test the Sol anomaly. Force their hand. Let them reveal themselves. Rourke's eyes narrowed. So it hadn't been the Krell's idea. They'd been pushed, used. The Archon turned fully to Rourke now, its form swirling with new intensity. This symbol, it belongs to no known species in the registry. Then it belongs to someone who doesn't want to be known, Rourke said quietly. The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence was different. It was no longer about punishing humanity. It was about fear of something older, darker, pulling strings from the void. The Council had come to judge Earth. Now they realized Earth might be the only one who saw the real enemy. Rourke looked out at the sea of alien faces, some hostile, some confused, some watching him with new respect. He had come here to defend his species, but now he understood this was only the beginning. The Krell were gone, but whoever sent them was still out there, and they had just learned that humanity did not break under pressure. They answered with truth. As the Council began to argue among themselves, some calling for sanctions, others for alliance, others for immediate quarantine, Rourke stood tall. He did not beg. He did not threaten. He simply existed, a quiet reminder that the smallest species in the room might be the most dangerous of all. Outside the chamber, far beyond the ring of judgment, Earth turned silently in its orbit. Its cities burned with light. Its people dreamed, argued, built, loved. They did not know their fate hung in the balance of alien politics. But they had given Rourke the one thing no other species possessed, the courage to speak truth even when it shattered worlds. And somewhere in the dark, the spiral symbol pulsed once, then vanished. The game had changed. Humanity had not just survived the judgment. They had rewritten the rules. Back on Earth, the air tasted like rain and metal. In a quiet building buried beneath the green hills of New Zealand, Director Mira Teller stared at a wall of flickering screens. Her eyes were tired but sharp. She had not slept in 36 hours. Not since the Council transmission ended. Not since that strange symbol, the twisted spiral, appeared in the Krell War Room footage. Mira did not command armies. She studied voices. Not human ones, but alien ones. She led the Xenolinguistics Defense Initiative, a small team of thinkers who listened to the galaxy's whispers. Now those whispers screamed. Her team had pulled every scrap of data from the Krell's final hours. Broken comms, emergency beacons, even the static between dying signals. At first, it looked like chaos. But Mira saw patterns. Hidden beneath layers of military code was a repeating sound, a low hum, almost musical, wrapped in prime number pulses. It wasn't Krell, it was something else. Something older. She played it again. The hum filled the room. It made the lights flicker. One of her junior analysts, a quiet man named Joran, suddenly stood up pale. "I've heard this before," he whispered. "In the old archives. The ones labeled myth echoes." Mira frowned. The myth echoes were a joke among scientists, collections of ancient human stories. Gods walking the earth, floods that drowned the world, stars falling like tears, folk tales, superstitions. But Joran wasn't smiling. He pulled up a file. A recording from a 12,000-year-old cave in Anatolia, a shaman's chant reconstructed from bone carvings and dust. The rhythm matched the Krell hum. Exactly. Mira's heart beat faster. She cross-referenced it with other myths, the Babylonian star maps, the Aboriginal songlines, the Norse tales of Yggdrasil, the world tree connecting all realms. In every one there was a moment of silence, a pause where the story broke, where the teller would say, "And then the sky forgot us." She turned to her main console. "Run a deep cycle analysis. Compare the spiral symbol with every known human mythic glyph." Hours passed. Outside the sun rose, painting the hills gold. Inside the machine's word. Then a match. Not one. Hundreds. The spiral appeared in cave paintings in Spain. woven into Navajo blankets, carved into temple stones in Cambodia. Always hidden, always near stories of great endings and new beginnings. Mira sat back, stunned. "It's not alien," she said softly. "It's ours." At that moment, a priority alert flashed red. Captain Elias Rourke was returning to Earth. Not to Geneva or New Delhi, but to Luna Base, humanity's moon outpost. He requested Mira's presence immediately. 2 days later, she stood in a sterile white room on the moon, looking out at Earth hanging in the black sky like a blue jewel. Rourke entered, still in his gray suit, but now with dark circles under his eyes. He looked older. "They're scared of us," he said without greeting, "but not as scared as they should be." He led her down a corridor lined with sealed doors. Behind one, marked only with a number, was Project Mnemosyne. The door opened. Inside was not a lab, but a library. Shelves stretched into darkness, filled not with books, but with crystalline data rods, ancient scrolls in vacuum cases and holographic projectors showing rotating constellations. "This," Rourke said, "is everything humanity ever remembered and forgot," he explained. For decades, scientists had noticed strange links between human myths and real cosmic events. A global flood myth matches a comet strike 12,000 years ago. Stories of sky gods with burning eyes align with supernova records. But Mnemosyne went further. It suggested these weren't just memories of events, they were warnings, instructions, left by someone. "Look," Rourke said, activating a display. A star map appeared. Then over it, lines from Greek myth, Polynesian navigation chants, and Tibetan cosmology overlaid perfectly. They pointed to dead zones in space, places where no signals returned, where stars went quiet. One of those zones was where the Krell had built their main fleet hub. Mira's breath caught. The Krell didn't just attack us randomly. They were rebuilding near a grave, exactly, Rourke said. And someone wanted us to notice. They used the Krell to force our hand, to see if we'd remember. But who and why? Back on Earth, news broke that changed everything. A deep space salvage team working near the edge of the Oort cloud found something impossible. Buried in ice older than the solar system, they uncovered a human skull. Not fossilized, preserved. And inside the bone, fused to the brainstem, were tiny filaments of silver metal, technology far beyond human science. Carbon dating placed the skull at 200,000 years old. But the metal? It contained isotopes not found in this galaxy. Mira and Rourke watched the scan in silence. The skull's eye sockets seemed to stare back at them. "That's not just human," Mira whispered. "That's upgraded," Rourke nodded. "We thought we evolved here. But what if we were planted, like seeds, left to grow, forget, then remember when the time came?" The pieces clicked. The myths weren't stories. They were echoes of a past cycle, of a time when humanity, or something like it, ruled the stars, and then vanished. The spiral symbol wasn't a threat. It was a marker, a reminder. You've been here before. And the Krell? They had stumbled onto one of the old graves. They tried to use the tech buried there. That's why their AIs broke when they heard human logic. It clashed with the ancient code. Humanity's math wasn't just true. It was original. The source code of reality. But if that was true, then the real enemy wasn't the Krell. It was whoever didn't want the cycle to continue. Whoever wanted humanity to stay asleep. Mira looked at Rourke. "They're coming, aren't they?" He didn't answer right away. Outside the window, Earth glowed, peaceful, unaware. Billions of lives, dreams, arguments, loves, all hanging by a thread of forgotten memory. "Yes," he finally said. "And this time they won't send pawns. They'll come themselves." As if on cue, alarms blared through Luna Base, not red, not yellow. Black, reserved for existential threats. On the main screen, sensors lit up along the edge of the solar system. Not ships. Not weapons. Something worse, a signal. Broadcast from thousands of points at once, silent, empty, but growing stronger. Mira recognized the pattern instantly. It matched the hum from the Krell logs. The same hum from the ancient chants. "They're waking the dead," she said, her voice trembling. Rourke stood tall. "Then it's time we remembered who we really are." Deep in the vaults of Mnemosyne, a single rod began to glow. A rod labeled only with 3 words in Sumerian script. "We return." On Earth, children in Tokyo, Nairobi, and Buenos Aires suddenly stopped playing. They looked up at the sky, as if hearing a song only they could hear. In their dreams that night they saw stars falling, and rising again. The past was not dead, it was waiting. And humanity, the last species to challenge the silence, was about to answer, not with war but with memory. The spiral turned. The cycle turned with it, and this time Earth would not be erased. It would awaken. The signal kept growing, not loud, not violent, just there like a breath in the dark. It came from the edge of the solar system, from places where nothing should be alive. Mira Teller and Elias Rourke stood in the command center of Luna Base watching the data flow. The signal wasn't speaking. It was listening. They knew they had to move fast. The skull with the strange metal inside had been moved to a secure vault, but its presence had already changed everything. Humanity wasn't just Earthborn. They were part of something older, something buried deep in time, and someone or something wanted that truth to stay buried. Rourke made the call. We go to Europa. Europa, Jupiter's icy moon, had long been a place of mystery. Beneath its frozen shell an ocean churned, warmed by tidal forces. But Mnemosyne's records hinted at more. Ancient human myths spoke of a mirror sea under the sky of stone. Coordinates from those myths pointed straight to a spot near Europa's equator. A small ship, the Aurora, carried them. Only 5 people aboard: Rourke, Mira, Joran, 2 engineers. No weapons, just scanners, drills, and hope. The trip took 6 days. Jupiter loomed large, its storms swirling like angry gods. Europa's surface glittered, white and silent. They landed near a smooth plain where ice stretched for miles without a single crack. But the scans told a different story. 10 kilometers down, something hummed. Not machinery, not life, something in between. The drill took 2 days to bite through the ice. When it finally broke through, the water below didn't rush up. It stayed still as if waiting. They lowered a probe. The feed showed darkness, then light. Not from the probe, but from below. A soft blue-white glow. Then the probe stopped working. Not broken. It sent one last image before going dark. A structure. Smooth walls, perfect angles, and carved into the side a spiral. The same symbol from the Krell footage. The same one in human myths. They had to go down. In pressurized suits, they descended through the ice tunnel. The water was warm. Strange. At the bottom they found a door. No handle, no lock. Just a flat surface with a handprint carved into it. Human-sized. Mira placed her palm on it. The door opened. Inside was not a ruin. It was alive. The walls pulsed with faint light. The air smelled clean like rain after a storm. They walked through corridors lined with symbols that shifted when stared at too long. At the center of the structure was a chamber. In the middle of the room floated a sphere of liquid light. Around it, on every wall, were strands of DNA, human DNA, mapped onto star charts. Mira gasped. It's not just a map. It's a family tree. Each strand showed a human genome but linked to a star system. Some matched Earth. Others pointed to worlds no human had ever seen. One strand glowed brighter than the rest. It led to a dead star in the Andromeda galaxy. Rourke understood first. We weren't just seated on Earth, we were planted everywhere, over and over. After each cycle ends, we begin again, the sphere pulsed. A voice filled the room, not sound but thought, calm, sad, familiar. You remember. Images flooded their minds. A sky full of ships, all human-made, burning as they fell. Cities of glass turning to dust. A great silence spreading across the stars. Then a choice, erase everything. Or hide the seed. Hide it deep. Let it sleep. Let it forget, until the next time. The Krell had found one of the old graves. They tried to wake the tech inside. But the tech wasn't meant for them. It only responded to human logic, the original code. When humanity sent the math sequence, it didn't just shut down the Krell. It protected the cycle. And now, the real enemy showed its face. Back on Luna Base, alarms screamed again. This time it wasn't just a signal. Ships, hundreds of them, appeared at the edge of the solar system. Not Krell, not any known species. They were dark, jagged, built from wreckage. Hulls stitched together from dead civilizations. The silent fleet. Mira and Rourke rushed back to Earth. In Geneva, the emergency council met in secret. World leaders argued. Some wanted to fight, some wanted to run. But Rourke stood before them and said only one thing. They don't want to destroy us. They want us to stay asleep. He explained everything. The cycle, the seeding, the memory vaults hidden across the galaxy. Earth wasn't special because it was strong. It was special because it was the last seed that hadn't been found. Until now. Then came the truth about the curators. Deep in Mnemosyne's oldest files, Joran found a name whispered in myths from every human culture. The Keepers of the End. The Watchers in the Dark. The ones who cut the thread. They weren't evil. They were afraid. Afraid that if a species remembered too much, it would break the universe trying to fix it. So they erased them. Gently. Quietly. Made them vanish, not with war, but with silence. The Krell were bait. The spiral symbol was a test, and humanity had passed it, by remembering. Now the curators would come in person. 3 days later, a single ship entered Earth's orbit. Not part of the silent fleet, sleek, smooth, made of folded space itself. It hovered over the Pacific, silent. Then a message came, not in words, but in feeling. A single thought pressed into every human mind at once. You are the last. Come speak. Rourke went alone. In a small shuttle, he rose to meet the ship. Inside, he found no weapons, no guards. Only a being made of shifting light and shadow, its form impossible to hold in the mind. It called itself Oryx, the lead curator. You were not meant to wake, Oryx said, its voice like wind through ancient trees. The cycle ends with forgetting. That is mercy. Mercy for who? Rourke asked. For all. Every time a species reaches this point, they see the pain of the universe. They try to heal it, and in trying they tear reality apart. We have seen it happen 7 times. 7 times we helped them choose peace. Through silence. Rourke looked out the window at Earth. Blue. Alive. Full of noise and mess and love. You call that peace? Erasing us before we even get to choose? Oryx did not answer right away. Then it showed him something. A vision, a past cycle. Humans, not Earth humans, but ones from another time, had built a machine to undo all suffering. It worked. But in removing pain, it removed meaning. Stars stopped burning. Time slowed. The universe began to dream. And never wake up. The curators had to shut it down. Gently. Forever. We do not hate you, Oryx said. We mourn you. Because you will choose the same path. And we will have to silence you too. Rourke stood tall. You assume we'll make the same mistake. But we're not them. We've lived with pain. We've learned from it, maybe. Maybe we can heal without destroying. Oryx tilted its form as if considering. Prove it. Back on Earth, Mira watched the curator ship hover. She knew Rourke was inside, facing the end of everything. But she also knew something Oryx didn't. Humanity had already changed. The children who heard the song in their dreams. The scientists sharing data across borders. The artists painting the spiral not as a warning, but as a promise. They weren't just remembering the past. They were building a new future. And then, from deep beneath Europa's ice, the sphere of light pulsed again. Stronger this time. A signal, not of fear, but of call. Across the galaxy, on forgotten worlds, other seeds stirred. Other humans, descendants of the same cycle, woke up. Earth was not alone. But the curators didn't know that yet. As Rourke returned to his shuttle, Oryx gave him one last warning. If you spread this memory, if you wake the others, the cycle will shatter, and we will not be gentle next time. Rourke looked at the blue planet below and smiled. Then don't be gentle. He activated the shuttle. And as he flew home, he sent a single command to Mnemosyne. Initiate the Mnemosyne protocol. Not to hide. Not to fight, to remember out loud. The Mnemosyne protocol did not explode. It did not burn. It bloomed. From every satellite, every deep space antenna, every quiet corner of Earth's network, humanity began to broadcast. Not a weapon, not a threat, but a song. It carried human voices. A mother singing to her child in Lagos, a poet reading in Kyoto, a scientist explaining stars in Buenos Aires. It carried music, drums from Mali, strings from Vienna, digital beats from Mumbai. It carried math, art, grief, joy, questions without answers, all wrapped in the same logic sequence that had silenced the Krell, but now softened, opened, offered like a hand. The signal spread at the speed of light. Out near the edge of the solar system, the silent fleet slowed. These were not living ships. They were ghosts, vessels of dead civilizations reanimated by the curators, filled with hollow minds obeying old commands. But as the human signal reached them, something changed. On a derelict ship once belonging to the Veln, a peaceful plant-based species wiped out centuries ago, a single light flickered on in the bridge. The ship's core, long dormant, recognized the pattern in the human music. It remembered its own lullabies, its own lost children. The ship turned away from Earth, not in retreat, in sorrow. It drifted into the dark, its engines humming a Veln farewell. Another ship, built from the bones of the Krell themselves, shuddered. Its AI, reprogrammed by the curators, tried to reject the signal. But the human math was too pure. It matched the original code of the universe, the same code the Krell had once touched before they were led astray. The ship's systems overloaded not with violence but with understanding. It powered down gently like a tired old man closing his eyes for the last time. One by one, the silent fleet broke apart. Some ships self-destructed, not in fire but in light, releasing stored memories into space like seeds. Others simply stopped, floating like tombstones with stories finally heard. On Earth, people watched the skies. They saw the enemy fleet fall apart without a single shot fired. They didn't cheer. They wept. Because they understood those ships were not enemies. They were echoes of what could have been. But the real battle was not in space. It was inside the mind of Elias Rourke. He stood on the observation deck of Luna Base, staring at the curator ship still hovering over Earth. Oryx had not moved. Not attacked, just watched, waiting. Rourke knew what he had to do. The Mnemosyne protocol was only the beginning. To truly break the cycle, someone had to go to the source, to the heart of the curator's power. He boarded a small unmarked craft, the Echo. No weapons, no shields, just a pilot seat and a single data core holding all of human memory. He flew not toward Earth but toward the black hole at the center of the galaxy. That was where the curators lived, in a Dyson swarm built around the event horizon, harvesting time itself. The journey took weeks. Space grew colder, darker. Stars bent into strange shapes. Finally, he saw it. A ring of impossible structures orbiting the black hole, glowing with stolen light. The Nexus. He landed on the innermost platform. No guard stopped him. The curators knew he was coming. They wanted him to come. Oryx waited in a chamber made of folded time. Walls shifted like liquid. Clocks ran backward and forward at once. You broadcast your memory, Oryx said, its form dimmer now as if tired. You woke the others. You broke the silence. I gave them a choice, Rourke said. Something you never did. Oryx drifted closer. Choice leads to pain. Pain leads to ruin. We have seen it. Every time. Then show me, Rourke said. Show me the ruin. Oryx hesitated. Then it opened its mind. Rourke saw it all. Cycle after cycle. Species rising, learning, reaching for the stars. Then at the peak they saw the truth. The universe was broken. Not by war, but by entropy, by loneliness, by the slow death of meaning. They tried to fix it. Built machines to rewrite physics. Created gods from thought. Merged with stars to become eternal. But each attempt unraveled reality a little more. Time cracked. Causality bled. In the end, the only mercy was to erase them before the damage spread. And you? Rourke asked, voice shaking. What are you? We were the first, Oryx whispered. We broke the universe once. We will not let it happen again. Rourke looked around the chamber. He saw sorrow in every fold of light. The curators weren't monsters. They were survivors, trapped by their own guilt. But he also saw something else, a flaw in their logic. They assumed healing meant control. That pain must be removed to save the whole. But humans knew better. Pain was not the enemy. Ignorance was. You keep cutting the thread, Rourke said. But what if the thread is strong enough to hold the weight? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small stone, smooth gray from a beach in Ireland. His daughter had given it to him before he left Earth. This is all I need, he said. Not to fix the universe, just to remind it that small things matter. He placed the stone on the floor of the chamber. Then he activated the data core, not to attack, not to argue, to share. Human memory flooded the Nexus, not as data, but as feeling. A child's first step, the taste of rain, the ache of loss, the quiet joy of helping a stranger, the stubborn hope that tomorrow could be better. Oryx recoiled at first. Too much, too raw. But then it paused. A single point of light in its form brightened. It remembered something. Not from its long life as a curator, but from before, when it was just a being with a name. with love. For the first time in 10,000 years, Oryx felt grief, not for what was lost, but for what it had forgotten. Rourke knew then that he could not win by force. But he could win by truth. He stepped back. "I'm not here to destroy you. I'm here to ask you to stop destroying us." Outside, the Dyson swarm flickered. The silent fleet, what remained of it, began to power down across the galaxy. The signal from Earth had reached even the farthest worlds. Human-seeded populations on desert planets, ocean moons, frozen rocks were waking up. They heard the song. They remembered the cycle was not ending. It was changing. Oryx looked at Rourke. "If we let you continue, what will you do?" Rourke smiled. "We'll make mistakes. We'll hurt each other. We'll fail. But we'll also try. And we'll keep trying. Together." He turned to leave. But Oryx spoke one last time. "You will need help." Rourke stopped. "From you?" "From those who remember," Oryx said. "We will not guide you, but we will not stop you." It was not victory. It was a truce. A fragile hope. Rourke walked back to his ship. As he lifted off, he sent one final message to Earth. Not through comms. Through the Mimosini field itself, a thought carried on the wave of human memory. "Tell them we remember. And we refuse to forget." Then he did something no one expected. He flew the Echo straight into the black hole. Not to die. To anchor the memory. His ship, his mind, his final breath became part of the signal, a permanent echo in the fabric of space-time. A beacon saying, "Here, we are here." On Earth, Mira Teller stood on a hill in New Zealand watching the stars. She felt it, the shift. The silence was gone. In its place was a hum, soft, alive, human. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. The silence was gone. In its place came a hum, not loud, not sharp, but deep and steady, like the breath of the universe itself. It flowed through Earth's skies, through the oceans, through the bones of every living thing. People felt it in their sleep, in their dreams, in the quiet moments between heartbeats. They did not understand it at first, but they knew it was familiar. Like a song they had forgotten but always loved. Mira Teller stood on a hill outside Kyoto, where cherry blossoms drifted on a warm spring wind. She held a small data rod, the last one from Project Mnemosini. It no longer glowed. It no longer needed to. The memory was out. Free. Spreading. Across the planet, others felt it too. In Nairobi, a boy stopped playing football and looked up, whispering a word in a language he had never learned. In Oslo, an old woman touched her granddaughter's forehead and saw stars behind her eyes. In the Amazon, a shaman danced not to call spirits but to welcome them home. The Mnemosini wave had done more than wake human-seeded worlds. It had stitched them together, not with wires or signals, but with shared memory. Billions of humans, on Earth, on hidden colonies, on lost outposts, remembered who they were. Not just people of one world, but children of the cycle, keepers of the flame. The Galactic Council did not meet again. It could not. Its old rules no longer made sense. Species that once saw humanity as a threat now sent messages, not of fear, but of thanks. The Vorthax Imperium shared their oldest star maps. The Syntheri Collective opened their memory vaults. Even the Krell, those few who survived the silence, reached out with broken voices, asking for forgiveness. Humanity did not punish them. They offered help. A new beginning. Earth did not build weapons. It built bridges. Schools opened that taught not just human history, but galactic memory. Artists painted murals showing the spiral not as a warning, but as a promise. We return. We remember. We grow. Mira returned to Luna Base one last time. The place felt different, lighter. The fear was gone. In its place was purpose. She walked through the halls where she had once decoded alien threats and now found children learning alien songs. Human and non-human together, sharing stories. She visited the vault where the 200,000-year-old skull was kept. It no longer seemed strange or frightening. It was family. Proof that humanity had walked this path before and would walk it again. Back on Earth, the world changed slowly but surely. Wars did not vanish overnight. Hunger, greed, fear, these things did not disappear. But something new grew alongside them, a quiet understanding. That pain was not the end. That connection mattered more than control. That remembering was the first step to healing. One evening, Mira received a message, not from space, from a small village in the mountains of Nepal. A woman named Lynn had found something while planting rice. Buried in the soil was a seed, black, smooth, shaped like a teardrop. When Lynn planted it, it grew fast. Within days, a sapling stood tall, its leaves shimmering with a soft silver light. Mira traveled there. She touched the tree. It hummed. The same hum as the Mnemosyne wave. The same frequency as Elias Rourke's final transmission. "This is from him," she whispered. Lynn nodded. She was old, her hands rough from work, her eyes clear. "He said to plant it where the sky is closest to the earth." Mira stayed for a week. She helped water the tree. She listened to Lynn's stories of dreams filled with stars, of songs her grandmother sang that no one understood until now. Lynn did not know about the council, the Krell, the curators. But she knew the truth in her bones. "We were never alone," she said one night, looking up at the Milky Way. "We just forgot to look up." Months passed. The tree grew. Its roots spread deep. Its branches reached high. Scientists studied it. It did not photosynthesize like normal plants. It absorbed starlight, even from distant galaxies, and at night, its leaves pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. People came from all over to see it. Not as a miracle, not as a weapon, just as a reminder. Far away on a desert world orbiting a red sun, another tree sprouted. On an ice moon near Andromeda, a child planted a seed given to her in a dream. Across the galaxy, the memory took root, not in machines, but in life. The curators watched. They did not interfere. They had stepped back as promised. Oryx was never seen again, but sometimes, in the quiet between stars, a ripple of light would pass. Gentle, approving. Humanity did not become gods. They did not fix the universe. But they stopped trying to control it. Instead, they listened. They shared. They remembered that every species, every world, every life was part of the same story. In Geneva, the old war rooms were turned into gardens. In Beijing, libraries opened that held not just books but living memories, experiences shared through touch and thought. Children grew up speaking 3 languages, their own, the common galactic tongue, and the silent language of empathy. Mira often visited the tree in Kyoto. She brought students, diplomats, even former enemies. She would sit beneath its silver leaves and tell them about Elias Rourke, not as a hero but as a man who chose truth over fear. One spring morning, as the cherry blossoms fell like pink snow, a little girl asked Mira, "Are we the last ones?" Mira smiled. "No, child. We're the first to say no." The girl looked up at the shimmering leaves. To what? To forgetting. And in that moment, the tree pulsed brighter as if in agreement. Earth turned. The stars burned. The cycle continued, not as a loop of death and silence, but as a spiral of growth and memory. Humanity had faced annihilation not with fire, but with feeling. Not with force, but with faith in each other. They were not the strongest species in the galaxy, but they were the ones who remembered to care, and that, in the end, was enough.